Hi guys, Shelly Fitzgerald with Shelly Quilts. Today I'm going to make some Hunter Star blocks. Love, love, love this. This is with the Go cutter, and I've used this over and over and over. I love it. And it's just a very easy to do block. It looks complicated, but it's not. So I just thought I'd show you really quick since it's something I enjoy so much. Sometimes I like to do relaxing sewing, and this to me is a relaxing sewing project. Sorry for shaking the camera. This is a finished sample of the block when it's all put together, and it's just beautiful. It's just pretty. I always make samples of all my quilts. This is the sample so that I can then practice the quilting and see if I like my ditch thread color and different things. But this is the Hunter Star block, and it's just lovely. So when I just want to relax and sew a little bit, this is usually, or one of, the blocks I go to. To do it, you cut 11-inch width strips on the lengthwise grain. So the selvage would have been here, and I would have cut 11-inch strips and then cross-cut it into 4-inch. And I like to put 2 of the dark, 2 of the white. It does not matter. I could put 4 of the dark and 4 of the white, because you need 4 dark strips, 4 light strips per each block. And you just situate it then over the die, and you do notice it's at an angle. That's okay. Did you see where I put some marks 1/4 inch away so that I'm positive I have plenty of fabric and that it's lined up correctly? So then you just put the die top on. I probably need to start getting a new one of those. And you just roll it through. And it just rolls so easy. So let me get my camera mount out of the way of the wheel. There we go. The reason I'm going slow is the mount I have the camera on and my hand are interacting. That is not good, but it is just what happens. So, once you've rolled it through, rub on it a little bit, slide it to the side, and here we go. They're cut out. So for a block like this that's fairly complicated, this is a lovely way to go. So here is the scrap. I toss that. These are too small for me. Some people do who knows what. And then I have now 4 perfect shapes. These are alternate when they're laying down because you'll use them alternate, but really it's the same shape, just cut at different angles on the die board. So you'll end up with 8 dark, 8 light of this shape in each block, and then the center triangles. So to get enough for the whole block, I'll just run that same fabric combination. I just ran that through twice. So now I've got all of my pieces for one block. So let me show you how those go together. I'm on a Bernina Artista 730. I'm using a 97, which is a 1/4 inch foot. The 97 is, this is a 9mm wide feed dog system. The 97 is 9 millimeters, well, it covers the full 9mm feed dog on the left. So I have the foot interacting with the feed dog, and then my 1/4 inch is up here on the right. But I'm going to start by sewing on a scrap. You can tell a lot about how your machine is working for the morning and for the day by starting and stopping on a scrap, and then I control all of those thread tails. In fact, I will cut off my initial one, and here we go. So the setup for this, let's see if I can back up a little bit. I don't know. I'm trying this horizontal filming. Some have asked, and I'm trying. So the setup, I've got 4 triangles in the light color. I have 4 bases in the light color. I have 8 of the side diamonds, and the same in the dark. So I like to come to my machine and put my diamonds and my bases right here. And the triangles I'll just put to the side. So they're the next step. So I will chain piece these. And I'm going to take a dark base and a light triangle. And diamond. And the diamonds have a different cut on either end. So I'm going to put them right sides together, and it won't fit like this. But if I flip it, the one for this side will line up perfectly like this. So these have a different end on them, and so right sides together, you line it up just right. So I'm going to do that looking at the fabric, not at the camera. And sew. So I'm going to sew off a couple of stitches and line this up on my quarter. And then I'm just going to chain piece all of these together. So now it's time to do the other side. I'll check to make sure that was straight, and it was. And I'll put that same diamond twisted the other direction, which will fit. So the other end of the diamond fits on the other side of the trapezoid, of the base unit that I was calling it. So one end fits on the left, one end fits on the right. And it works out awesome. Now off to the ironing board. Okay, so I have now pressed these open. And when I press to the dark. So on these, it's going in, and on these, it's going out. So I've pressed to the dark. And then the one thing that I can get tired and not pay attention to is which triangle goes on which block. So the big triangle in the middle, this long piece, is the same as the triangle you're putting on. So each piece should have the big triangle, the long in the middle, and then the accent is the opposite color. So if you remember that, then you'll get them correctly. So let me sew those on. It goes very quick. It's lined up perfectly because of the cut again. So the way they've already cut all the dog ears, they make this so easy. And then I reach down and line up the bottom end, pull it back, and make sure that the centers are lined up, and go. pressed all these. Having made quite a few of these, I've decided how I like to press them. You'd need to make a few and decide, but my suggestion is that the light colored block gets pressed towards the piecing, and the dark colored block gets pressed towards, away from the piecing, towards the dark. And then later, when we put all 4 of the 6-inch blocks together to complete our triangle, they nest really well. So that's the way I press them. So now we'll put them just together. A light and a dark, a light and a dark. It's time to double check. Did you get a dark and a dark, a light and a light, so that it looks correct when you're finishing your block? I do pin. You don't have to, but I like to nest this corner and pin. That diagonal pinning trick I've shown y'all elsewhere doesn't work as well when you're on these diagonal lines, so I just pin straight across. But I do like to pin, although these are really accurate blocks. You might not need to do that. That's just my style. I pin the very end so that it's perfect also. And like I said, that they're so perfect, that's probably unnecessary. It's just the way I prefer to sew. So here we go. Press them to one side and twirl. Let's take a peek. You curious? Look how perfect. They're just absolutely perfect. I knew without peeking, but I thought you might want to see. Then I'll go press these up and bring them back. This is so cool with these Go Cutter blocks. I'll be back. Okay, so I've pressed these, and I wanted to bring the camera over to show you how it gets laid out, because you really want to be careful to do it correctly. Then it also spins either one direction or the other. So I've got the dark in this corner, and I want to make sure that I continue that for the whole quilt versus having it the exact opposite. It would spin the other direction, and it wouldn't match up then with the other blocks in the quilt, although it looks great. So as soon as I make my very first block, see, I've started getting some here. I have a tendency to leave them out so that when I set this block up, I sometimes even set it up on the previous so that I'm guaranteed that they are going to spin in the right direction and not have to go back and take those apart. So that way I can confirm that all the quilt blocks are going to be going the same way. So, and then just because I'm here, I'll show you. I like to pin or do these open. See, now let me get this lined out again so that I'm not going to mess it up. Get it just right. Is that right? Does that match that? Yes. Anyway, I end up pressing my seams open rather than twirling. I have a better visual when I join, but you of course can do whatever you want. But it's a beautiful front and back of a block. But just a handy tip. Once you make your very first block, it really doesn't matter which way they spin, but after that you want them to continue to spin the same direction. So I just kind of keep my finished blocks here so that I can set up this one that I'm about to sew together correctly. So I'm going to sew these two and these two, and then I'll sew them together, and here we go. So as soon as I get to the machine, on any block, I put a pin, even though it's not lined up well, I put a pin on the seam, oops, that I'm thinking I'm stitching. And that way, no matter where I put that block, I don't get confused as to which side. So that's just there for that reason. Then I start at the middle and I make sure that these are just right. And I feel through with my fingers to make sure that those are meeting perfectly. And I'll put a pin while I line up the rest. And then here, these are going to nest. I didn't show you how well they nested when we sewed the other, but they did because I'm always pressing to the dark. They nest well. And on this one, they nest well because remember, I pressed that white towards the patchwork. And then I pressed on the dark side towards the dark. So I've got a beautiful nest right there, which will make this look very nice. And then the rest of it is just the straight seam. So let's take a little peek. Beautiful. See, they match beautiful here. They match beautiful here. I'll go press those. Okay, so I pressed that seam open also. And I just always do it this way. I want this little intersection to line up perfectly. This is the only lining up on this entire block. But see how I'm going to put a pin so that it comes out exactly where I want it on this side. That's not it. Cameras and stitching. There you go. Can you see that I've got that pin coming out exactly at that intersection? Oh. And I'm going to now put it in exactly at this intersection. And those are going to be lined up perfectly. That pin is flat. I'm going to put another pin on either side to make sure that it stays exactly there, because that's my one big intersection that I want to meet up. And it's not difficult. See how I've got that pin straight? Get the edges lined up and the pin is straight, and I'm going to pin on either side. I'm using really thin pins, so I didn't pin into all of this seam allowance. I found that that kind of bent my pins. But I've been successful even pinning this far away. That's a whole different topic of discussion, and if I had a heavier pin, I might, I don't know. Anyway, I've pinned away. But that's how I set up the center. And then these are just going to nest just like they did before. So I'm a pinner, so I will pin the nesting ones also. If you're not a pinner, those nesting ones probably just snug right in together perfectly. I am not willing to take that chance. And I do not mind ripping out and redoing. I have to do that all the time. But I will rip out. If I have to rip out, I just rip out that little part that needs to be redone. I don't take out the whole seam. So if this doesn't match up perfectly, I'll take it out from here to here, reline it, stitch over it again, and make sure that it's going to be great. So here we go. Last seam of the block. All right, let's take a peek. There you go. Looks pretty good to me. I might tear it out and do it one more time. See how they're not quite on? Stitching this with a camera in my face. So I think I'll tear that out because I'm kind of a perfectionist. These look awesome. This one looks awesome, but this one, you know, that's good enough for government work, but I'm not doing government work. I'm going to tear that out. So I'm just going to pick it out from here to here, realign it, and sew over it again. Much better. I'm much happier with that. So, there we go. I'll give it a final press. And there is your Hunter Star block. It's a wonderful quilt. I'm just trying to get rid of scraps. I'm just doing some relaxing stitching this morning. This is Shelly Fitzgerald with Sew Shelly Quilts. And I hope you like making the Hunter Star block.